Zoro is incredibly powerful, and with the release of Pillars of Strength, this deck just got so much better. All of these cards are provided by our sponsor, Cartamagica. So if you're looking for any One Piece products or singles, check out the website and use our discount code. First off, I'm playing 4 copies of Izo. Izo is a new red searcher from Pillars of Strength that searches Whitebeard Pirates. On play, you get to look at the top 5 cards and reveal a Whitebeard Pirate and add it to your hand. This deck is primarily geared around powerful 1-cost characters, so this card is a no-brainer to play in this deck. Next up is 4 copies of Buggy. Buggy is another new addition to the deck from Pillars of Strength, and this card is incredible. On play, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and add a red event card. Now, what makes Buggy super broken though is the fact that he is a 3k stat rather than the usual 2k, and he has the special ability that he cannot be destroyed by slash units. In the format where other Zoro players exist and other Law players exist, this ability is insane. Next up, I'm playing 4 copies of Otama. Otama is an incredibly solid card as it is a 2k counter with a great on-play effect. On play, you get to give one opposing character minus 2k stat, which is incredibly useful and pairs up with a lot of cards that we're playing in our deck. Next, we have 4 copies of Makino. As I said before, this deck is geared around our 1-cost units and making them powerful. Makino does exactly that with her incredible ability. You can rest her and target one red 1-cost unit, and then that unit gains 3k stat. So essentially, she can make your Buggy or Izo hit the magic number for free essentially, and it's very dawn efficient and a very solid card. She's also of course a 2k counter, which makes her a fantastic card overall. And lastly, for the 1-drops, I'm playing 3 copies of Gordon. Gordon is a fantastic piece of utility due to his amazing effect. You can activate him and then place him to the bottom of your deck and then give an opposing character 3k stat. This is super valuable as he is searchable and pairs up super nicely with other cards that we're playing in the deck, which I'll showcase soon. Next, we have 4 copies of Curly Dedan. Curly Dedan is yet another searcher we play. I would argue what makes red so strong is the amount of searches you can play. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. Dedan's effect says that on play you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and add a 1 red 1-cost unit. Having the ability to search your searchers is what makes this deck way too consistent in my opinion. Next, I'm playing 4 copies of Vista. Vista is one of the cards that I mentioned that pair up with Otama and Gordon. On play, you can KO an opposing character with a 3k stat or less. So when you pair Vista with Otama and Gordon, you get to KO powerful characters for free basically. He's also now searchable off of Izo and is a 1k counter, which makes Vista an incredibly solid card. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Rush Zoro. Zoro is a super solid card as his ability is rather simple and super effective. He's a 3-cost with a 5k stat, which is already great, and he has the rush ability. So during the mid game, being able to swing with all your low cost units and attaching 1 Dawn to your Zoro leader. Zoro is a great card you can play for 3 Dawn to essentially rush down your opponent's field and get more cards out of their hand or take an additional life. Zoro is unfortunately not searchable since we removed the Nami searcher from the deck. With the decrease of Straw Hat cards in the deck and the increase of Whitebeard Pirates, I think it makes sense to replace the Straw Hat engine with the Whitebeard Pirates engine. However, I still love Rush Zoro as I believe during the mid game being able to apply additional pressure, and in the late game being able to just play a rush card from your hand for only 3 Dawn is way too valuable in my opinion. I'm only playing 3 copies to make space for other cards in the deck, and since he is not a counter, he is one of the brickier cards in the deck as well. Next up, we have 2 copies of Marshall D. Teach. Teach is a new Whitebeard Pirate and he is super solid. Teach costs 4 Dawn, has a 6k stat and an incredible ability, which is why I'm choosing to play him. When you attack with Teach, you can trash 1 red character with 4k stat or more, draw 1 card, and then Teach gains 1k. This means your Teach is going to be swinging for 8 every single turn, which is super good. Being able to trash a unit with 4k stat or more is super easy to do and makes Teach very strong. I'm only opting to play 2 copies since he's very searchable, and since he's not a counter, he is one of the brickier cards of the deck. I also think in matchups like Big Mom and Doflamingo, where they're summoning powerful units to the field, having a card like Teach to guarantee swings over them is very valuable. Next, we're playing 1 Jozu. Now, I'm aware this looks odd, however, there's reasoning behind it. When Xavier and I were deciding the ratios, we decided that Makino and Otama were more impactful 2k counters. Since Makino and Otama have great effects, and in comparison, Jozu is a vanilla since we cannot utilize his effect due to not having a Whitebeard Pirate leader. We opted to play the 1 copy since he is still very searchable, and there was also no other card we wanted to play at 1 in the deck. Next, we have the 1 copy of Marco. Marco has obviously been limited to 1, however, he's still an incredibly powerful card, which is why we're opting to play him still. His ability says that on KO, if you have 2 life or less, you can discard a Whitebeard Pirates card and then resummon him to the field. He is, in my opinion, one of the best blockers in the entire game, and I'm not surprised he went to 1. It definitely impacts the deck's defensive capabilities a little bit, however, at 1 copy, I think you still have to play it, and if you see it, great, if you don't, no problem. And lastly, for my favorite card of the new set, 4 copies of Marco. This 5-cost Marco is just broken. Use a 5-cost with a 6k stat with an on-play effect to KO an opposing unit with 3k power or less. Again, just like Vista, this card pairs up super well with Gordon and Otama. But what really makes him broken in my opinion is the fact that when he's KO'd, you can discard 1 event card to play him back to the field rested. So essentially you want to play out your Marcos and then have them stick on the field for the rest of the game, and that is what makes the red deck so broken in my opinion. Not only does this card help you control the field by destroying cards on play, he'll also just never leave the field. Now comes up the event lineup, which is super important as they help increase your defense but also act as discard fodder for Marco. First up, we have the 1 copy of Radical Beam. Radical Beam is so good, and there's a reason why I went to 1. It is a 1-cost counter event that says your leader or character gains 2k stat, but then if you have 2 or less life, it gains an additional 2k stat. So being able to have this amount of defense for 1 Don is way too good in my opinion, and I'm glad to see this card go to 1. Next, I'm playing for Guard Point. Guard Point is a 1-cost counter event that says your leader or character gains 3k stat. This essentially replaces the additional copies of Radical Beam we lost, so honestly, not that much has changed. The card is searchable and just a super solid card all around. Next up, we play 4 copies of Whitebeard Pirates. Whitebeard Pirates is yet another searcher of the deck, which makes the total searches in our deck 16, which I think is just way too much in my opinion. The ability says you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and add a Whitebeard character. And thankfully the trigger says you get to activate the main effects, with a super solid trigger. Playing Whitebeard Pirates is super important as it gets you to card like Izo and Marco faster. You also want to make sure to play a high event cost in your deck to make sure you have enough targets for Buggy to search, and to make sure that you always have discard fodder for Marco to always be able to bring him back. And lastly, I'm playing 3 copies of Fire Fist. Fire Fist is another broken card that is searchable off Izo and Buggy. The effect says you can trash 1 event from your hand to KO a character of 5k stat and 4k stat. And the trigger effect is solid, you can just KO a unit with 5k stat or less. I believe that this card only costing 3 Dawn and discarding 1 event card to be able to KO 2 units is way too good. The cord also of course pairs up nicely with Gordon and Otama. Being able to lower powerful units on the field and then KOing them with this card is so strong. This also brings the ratio of events in the deck to 12, which for Buggy is a super solid number. And that's my Zoro deck profile. If you have any questions or advice, make sure to comment them down below, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe.